Okay, guys, welcome back to Let's Get Freaky podcast. I am super excited. I know I say that every week, but I really am super excited today because I have got an awesome guest that I have been listening to for many years now. I'm a big fanboy, and it's quite a surreal moment right now. Welcome to Let's Get Freaky, Vic Cundiff. How are you, sir? Thank you for being here, man.
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. And when are you going to bring this amazing guest on?
He's here. He's here, brother.
Oh, he's in the green room. I see.
It's so surreal because this is the cool thing about podcasts. This is the amazing thing about like you listen to podcasts weekly, and you kind of feel like the host. Like you really do. You get to know the host. You get to know that voice. It becomes a comfort, and that's how I feel with you, man. So it's quite surreal hearing your voice and hearing you talk back to me. So thank you very much for being here. It's very exciting.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to do it.
So you've got four shows, is that right? Or have you got more than four shows?
Well, technically I have five, but my paranormal experience is on a pretty much a permanent hiatus.
Hmm.
So the story behind that is I agreed to go ahead and put the pieces together to get my paranormal experience off the ground for this person I was trying to help out. And the plan was once I got it off the ground and up and going, they would take over. They would handle acquiring guests, editing shows, and all the other things, recording shows, everything else that goes into producing a podcast, but they never did any of that. So that really left me pretty bitter about that. So yeah, it's a
Ah,
pretty safe thing to say that that show's on a permanent hiatus. I'm just going to focus on other things. My
mhm.
four shows that I actually do produce.
Yeah. Well, that's enough. I know how hard it is doing one. So four, four, that's wild, man. Four, and they're four awesome. I know you've got, as we're recording this right now, one is dropping tonight. So nobody's heard that yet. I believe that's right.
Well, I dropped one earlier today, right around 10:30ish or so,
Oh, okay.
but yeah, I'm not going to drop any more until either tomorrow night or Thursday night. And then on Friday night, I'll be dropping four episodes of my new podcast called Dogman Tales. That's got fictional stories about dogmen in it. And I premiered that just 2 weeks ago or so. And
Oh,
then
okay.
I'm gonna air a new episode of Dogman Encounters. I'm going to air a new episode of Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio and a new episode of my Bigfoot sighting. So, yeah, busy
Yeah,
times. It's actually
man.
seven new episodes.
Wow. Wow, brother. You do work hard, man. So the first show that I started listening to yours was Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio. And it's got me through many train journeys and work. At least to listen at work all the time. Awesome show, brother. Awesome show. You've also got Dogman Encounters Radio, as you said, another fantastic show that I listen to all the time. Great podcast, man. I love hearing real people and real people's stories, and it's so cool. It's so cool to listen to. And what got you into these subjects?
Well, almost 20 years ago in the cryptid world, it was kind of like the thing to go to Blog Talk Radio, and every night of the week there was a new podcast episode coming on. Monday nights you had, I think, Bob Coyne. Tuesday nights you had Campfire Shadows, I think, and then Wednesday there was another. Thursday and Friday there were other ones and all that were airing new episodes. So I would just make the rounds every weekend night or every weeknight. I would just be in the chat rooms for all those podcasts and everything, and it was something to look forward to after work and everything. Well, I used to listen to Campfire Shadows more religiously than the other ones, and back then, I'm sure everyone listening knows who Jim Bear Grant is, and also Tim Coonbo Baker. Well, they used to be regulars on that show. Jim Grant Bear, he used to be the host of the show, actually. And a man named Shane McMahon was actually the co-host. He's now since deceased, unfortunately, but I used to listen to that show religiously, like I said. Well, one night when I was listening, just out of the blue, Bear let it be known that he was going to be stepping away from the show to pursue other things, such as spending more time in the woods. Well, when he was talking about all that, at the tail end, he said, as far as a replacement, I've been thinking about this, and I think Vic Cundiff would make a good replacement for me. And I'm thinking, well, wow, why would he say that? I can't do this. So then I thought about it. I put some thought into it, and I thought, you know what? Well, I love the topic and I like the people, so why not give it a try? So I gave it a try, and I was a co-host on the show with Shane McMahon, and I grew to love it. It was a lot of fun, and yeah, that was back in 2007 and 2008 that I was a co-host for that show. And then I stepped away from the show myself, and I was out of the whole picture of podcasting until what, 2014, I think it was, when I aired the first episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. And then the year after that, I aired the first episode of Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio. And then just 4 years ago, I aired the first episode of my Bigfoot sighting. And then, like I told you, what, 2 weeks ago or so, I aired the first episodes of Dogman Tales. So it's been quite the ride. And one thing I noticed back then, you could just, talking about 2007, 2008, back then you could just talk about Sasquatch, anything to do with Sasquatch, and people would beat a path to your door in the cryptid community. But as time went by, there's been less and less of an interest, it would seem, in Squatch talk and a lot more interest in the encounters. So that's why for Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio and my Bigfoot sighting, it's so encounter heavy, especially with my Bigfoot sighting. It's nothing but encounters. Eyewitnesses coming on and sharing their encounters compared to Bigfoot Eyewitness. I let the eyewitnesses share their experiences, but I ask them questions after they get done doing that. So that's why I set those podcasts up the way I did.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So you kind of fell into the podcast world.
I did. Yeah, I did.
Ah, well, we're thankful that you did, man, because you brought us and you brought me and many millions of people hours of amazing content. So we're very lucky to have you, man. That is for sure. So have you had any experiences yourself? Have you seen any of these creatures or had any experiences?
I've got two occasions in my past where I just might have seen one, but I don't want to be that guy to say, oh, yeah, it definitely was, when I don't know for sure that's what they were. But going back well before these two encounters, almost 45 years ago, right around 1980, I was deer hunting in the middle of absolute nowhere and had an experience where I'm convinced I had a 1,000 pounder literally just feet behind me. And I was literally in the middle of nowhere. If I had to walk out of there, that would have been quite the task. But the story behind that one is, do you want me to tell you the story behind that?
Yeah, man, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Well, back then, I had a neighbor who he was the ultimate outdoorsman. I mean, he had done so many things from hunting and hiking to camping and whatever else in the outdoors. You just name it. Horseback riding, farming. He just had done it. Well, I ate that up like candy. So I would go down there and sit on that man's couch and listen to him share experience after experience about the outdoors, things he had done, until he would eventually pull out the newspaper and start reading it. That was my cue. I would worn out my welcome. So one day, finally, it was in the summer, he said, you know what, Vic, you've always had this interest in the outdoors, in animals and everything. He said, why don't you take the hunter safety course, get your license for deer season? If you do that, then I'll take you down to the farm with me the night before opening day of season of deer season, and I'll show you the ropes on how to hunt deer. So I was all for that. I loved animals, didn't put any thought into how I'd be devastated if I actually would have shot a buck or a doe, but I was in. It was an adventure and everything, and I always loved being out in the country, so I said, sign me up. So I went ahead and got my license, and fast forward to the day before opening day of season, and we just went down to his farm, and as we were driving up this long, long lane off of the country road to get to the farmhouse, I've always been crazy about horses, always loved horses. Well, I think it was off to the right side, there's this bay horse that we come upon that's just on the other side of the fence. And I take note of it, and he hears me take a note of it, and he said, oh, that's Red. He said, stay away from him. He'll kill you. So I'm thinking, okay, well, point taken. Won't have to worry about that. I'm not going to go anywhere near him then. So then we just drove a little bit further, and then we came around a bend, and there was another bay horse. And I noticed it, and I looked at him, and he said, oh, yeah, that's so and so. I forgot the horse's name. He said, that's so and so and so and so. He's fine. You can go and pet him, do whatever with him. He'll be fine. It's funny how I remember Red's name, but not that horse's name. But anyway, we pulled up to the house, got our stuff out, and we got inside, got situated, and before too long, it was time to go to bed. Well, I went up into the attic. That's where there was like a tidy little bedroom he had made. It's like a guest bedroom. So I went up there and I got situated for bedtime, and I went to sleep. And just like we had arranged, I woke up about uh maybe a little over an hour before dawn. So I went downstairs after getting dressed, and we had some breakfast, and then after that we headed out. And we just walked a distance until we got to the tree line, and then we headed in. This is a big forest, huge forest. Well, we went into the trees and we walked and we walked. And this is hollow country. They're just big hollows down one slope, a big slope, and then eventually get to the bottom of the hollow, and then up the other side, down, and then up. Finally, we got to this one spot. After we had crested the top of this huge hollow, we had gone about halfway down this thing when he stopped and said, all right, this is it for you. He said, you're going to post up right here. You can just lean up against this tree. And he said, remember what I told you, and you'll do just fine. He said, I'm going to be hunting a few ridges over, and right before dark, I'll just come in and I'll get you on the way back to the farmhouse. I said, okay, well, great. So I sat down, got situated, and it was about maybe, I'm not sure how long it was before the sun came up, but eventually the sun came up. And then once it did, I kind of got myself situated with what was around me and everything. And I remembered what he told me about no sudden movements, and I'm just scanning and I'm scanning. No movement, nothing was going on, not even a squirrel. I'm sitting there and I'm sitting there. I think it was, don't hold me to it, but I think it was around noonish, maybe 12:30ish or so. I hadn't seen a thing. When all of a sudden, I'm just sitting up there against this big oak tree when all of a sudden I hear this loud whinny. And it just, when you're close to a horse and it whinnies, there's something about the volume of the air that's moved, the lung volume, that it just gets you. It affects you. Well, this slope that I was on, I was sitting up against that tree on this steep slope of a hollow. It was too slope for a horse to want to go on. And also on top of that, there are a bunch of sycamores around me, a bunch of oak leaves on the ground too. There's probably a foot of tree trash on the ground. So there's no way a horse could have gotten to me unless it had a death wish. And then number two, I would have heard it coming from a mile away. So I'm leaning up against this tree and I hear this loud whinny. It sounded like it was probably 20 feet or less behind me. For people who don't know distances, that's probably about the length of a pickup truck. So I hear that whinny and I just froze and I thought, what in the world? And I thought, oh no, did Red follow us? Did Red follow us? And he's right here behind me. So I'm sitting there trying to process the possibilities of that when all of a sudden I hear this really loud horse blow. Now, everyone knows what a whinny sounds like and has been around a horse that's whinnied, but a horse blow, not so much so. Unless you spend a lot of time around horses, you probably haven't been there with a horse when it does a blow. Horses, an interesting fact about horses is, unlike other animals, they can't breathe through their mouths. They can only breathe through their nostrils. That's why, have you ever wondered why you hear horses snorting so much?
Yeah.
Doing things like that? Well, they're really obsessed about keeping their nostrils clean, and understandably so. If breathing had to be done through your nostrils, you'd be really particular about keeping your nostrils clean too.
Hmm.
Well, sometimes when they get one crossways up there or a fly flies up or whatever, they'll do what's called a blow to forcefully clean out their nostrils. And when they do that, it's kind of like a cough, a really forceful cough through their nostrils where they really wind up and empty their lungs. And they empty their lungs right now. So it's a lot of air going through those nostrils. So it's loud, it's violent in a way. And if you're not expecting it and you're close to a horse that does a good blow, it can scare you out of your boots. So, yeah, I'm sitting there and all of a sudden I hear this real loud, forceful horse blow. Well, I'm a big guy. There aren't that many guys bigger than I am, but my lungs aren't anywhere close to being big enough to match the volume of the air that I heard coming out behind me. That's why I say it had to have been 1,000 pound squatch. Well, there's several reasons why I think it was 1,000 pounder. Number one, the volume of air I heard come out, it had to be. It was the same volume as I've heard from 1,000 pound horses.
Hmm.
So that is kind of like a qualification for size there. Now, it couldn't have been a horse for the reasons I just laid out. That slope was just too steep for a horse to try to navigate. Number two, I would have heard a horse miles away trying to make it to me. So if it wasn't a horse, what could have snuck up on me? Because there was nothing there when we got there. What could have snuck up on me that had lungs that size?
Hmm.
Other than a
Yeah, man.
horse. So I think it had to have been a Sasquatch. Now, full disclosure, I'll be the first to tell you I never saw a Sasquatch that day, but through process of elimination, I still think it had to have been one.
Interesting, man. Interesting. Yeah. That's so cool. While you're explaining this, I'm still like getting my head around the fact that Vic Cundiff is sharing an encounter on my podcast. That is wild, man.
Oh,
That
come on.
that is
I'm just a
wild
normal
to me.
guy.
No, no, not at all. You're a cool guy. That's what you are, man. That's
Well,
that's
thank you.
that's cool. At that time, at that moment when you heard that sound, was you into the Bigfoot and stuff like that at that time? Was you aware of cryptids at that time?
I was aware of Bigfoot. That was the only cryptid besides Nessie that I knew about.
Hmm.
I've always loved things that go bump in the night. I've always loved the outdoors. So, yeah, I definitely was well aware of Bigfoot back then. But at the time, I didn't connect the dots. I didn't realize through deductive reasoning what it must have been. It wasn't until after the fact that I did that. But yeah, to think that I probably had a 1,000 pound Sasquatch just feet behind me, and at some point it was probably messing with me,
Yeah.
reaching around the tree and holding its finger or hand really close to my head or something. I would have died if I would have turned around and seen that big boy, but it was
Hmm.
probably messing with me. So, yeah, in a way, I feel lucky that way.
Yeah. Interesting, man. The guy that you was hunting with, has he ever seen a Bigfoot? Has he ever come across a Sasquatch or anything like that?
No, I don't think he ever has. I don't think I ever flat out asked him if he had, but yeah, I don't think he had. I mean, if he would have seen the Sasquatch, I'm pretty sure after all the stories he told me, as I sat there on his couch, I would have heard about that.
Yeah.
That guy actually did get attacked by a black bear one day.
Oh
It's
wow.
funny, it's hilarious because I was sitting on his couch and he just said out of the blue, I think he might have had the paper in his hands. Anyway, he said, "Oh, did I tell you about the time that," because he knew I was a sucker for a good story about the outdoors. He said, "Oh, did I tell you about the time I was attacked by a black bear?" And I'm thinking, "Oh, come on now. In addition to all these other things you've done, all the places you've been, now you're going to tell me, you've got the nerve to tell me that you were attacked by a black bear? Come on now." And as I'm talking, he's holding his leg up and pulling up his pant leg. His pants were loose enough where he could pull his pants up over his knee. So he pulled one pant leg up over his knee, and I'm taking a look at his leg there, and he had like, that's not pock marks, it's like the dents. He had the dents in his leg, and some of the dents were in his calf that basically were the right spread for bear jaws, bear teeth to bite his leg like that. The story behind that was, and that blew me away, he was hunting in Upper Peninsula, Michigan. This was years and years ago before our conversation. And he was telling me how he was walking through this pine thicket, but all of a sudden he got this feeling like he was being watched and probably followed. So he stopped and was listening. He didn't hear a thing. So he thought, okay, yeah, it's nothing. It's just my mind playing tricks on me. So he started walking again. And then he thought he could hear a twig snap or something like that. like something was following him. So he thought, what in the world? So finally he thought, you know what? I'm going to get down on the ground and look underneath the boughs because it was so thick in there where he was. He said you couldn't really see any distance whatsoever. So he drops down to the ground and he's looking this way, he's looking that way. And then when he looks over in this one particular direction, he sees this black bear. I know they're smart, but apparently this one was a Mensa member because this black bear was doing the same thing he was doing. He said the black bear was hunkered down on the ground looking underneath the boughs at him, doing the same thing he was doing to acquire it. And once he made eye contact with it, it just bolted right towards him. And he was hoping it was a bluff charge, but not this day. It wasn't a bluff charge. It was a real deal. It was a predatory charge. So it bowled him over, and then he said it circled back. He said it didn't jump on him right off the bat. It ran through him. It bowled him over with impact. And then after he hit the ground, then it circled around and came back and attacked after the fact. And it grabbed his leg, and I can't remember if he hit it in the head with his rifle, the butt of his rifle. I can't remember how he got it off of him, but somehow he got this thing off of him. And yeah, I got to see the tooth marks and looking at how wide apart they were. Yeah, it must have been a fairly sizable black bear.
Wow, man. I believe I might be wrong, but I believe black bears actually kill more people than the brown bears. Is that right? The grizzlies.
That's right. Yeah, they do. They do.
Dangerous, man. Dangerous. I think we should be just as careful around any animal in nature because they're all a lot scarier than us and stronger than us when it comes to it in the elements. But yeah, we need to be more careful of black bears, man. Wow.
I'd say.
So
I'd say.
you said you had a couple of experiences with cryptids. What was the other one?
Well, another one happened, I guess, about maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I guess that's just a guess. I like to walk out in the country, and I really like to walk through the woods, but I don't always go through the woods. Sometimes I'll just walk through fields and everything. But this one day, I went out into the country that's not too far from where I live here in a different direction. And I went ahead and parked. I walked a distance to this little bridge that goes up and over a creek, and it's an arching bridge. Well, I walked up and over the bridge, and then after I got over the bridge, I walked. There were green fields in this area, and the green fields, I guess it was late summer or something. The green fields are grown up to about 6 feet or whatever. So I'm walking through this green field, and I walked about maybe 3/8 of a mile from the bridge, 3/8 of a mile on the other side of that bridge. It was an arching bridge. I went up and over this creek. Well, after I walked about 3/8 of a mile, I decided just to turn around. So I turned around and started walking back, and I would guess I was about a quarter mile from that bridge. Well, to get to that bridge, from the way I walked, I would walk the path that I walked, and then I would need to turn left, walk a very short distance, and then I would get up onto the bridge to go up and over the creek. So as I'm walking, all of a sudden, the green field was about 6 feet. So I was still able to see over the top of the green field. Well, I could see this black figure coming. It had a strange movement to it. It, with the arching bridge arching the way it did, once the subject got to the top of the arch, I could see the whole body. And there was something about the running style as I was able to see more and more of it that was kind of throwing me off. I'm thinking, okay, what's going on here? This isn't normal. Well, this this subject was plucking. It was all black and it had a pointed top to its head, which could have been a guy that was wearing all black with a sweatshirt hood pulled up. But if that was the case, I would think that he must have had that hood drawn tight around his face so that all that was visible, if you're right on top of him, would have been his eyes because it was a blackout. I mean, it was just blacker than black. So this figure comes jogging, running, whatever you want to call it, up and over the bridge. And it's kind of like plucking its feet in a strange way off of the bridge as it's moving in a really unnatural way. Could it have been a guy moving like that? Yeah, definitely could have. But I don't know why someone would jog that way. As far as the size estimate, you got to remember I was probably roughly, give or take, a quarter mile away. So it's really hard to know for sure how big this thing was, but I think it was bigger than I am. It might have been 7 feet. It might have been 7 feet tall. It might have been shorter than that. Because again, I'm a quarter mile-ish or so away.
Hmm.
But as it's coming up and over the bridge, I'm just trying to take in all the detail I can, and all I'm seeing is black. And then that shape with a pointed top to its head or a hood. And then as it comes over to my side of the bridge, it starts going down and down and down until all I could see pretty much was its head. And then it just moved from my right to left in a perpendicular direction to the line that I was traveling through the field. Well, when I got to the point where I was on the edge of the field and could look to my left to look in the direction that it or he had been traveling, I didn't see a thing. I didn't see a thing. So, was it a Sasquatch I saw that day? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if it was 7 feet, there are guys that are 7 footers who could wear a very black sweatshirt with the hood pulled up, but it was late summer. But who knows? All I can do is just tell you the information, what I saw, and that's what I saw.
Hmm.
You come to whatever conclusion you want to come to about was it a Sasquatch or not, because I don't know.
I'm going to say it was. I'm going to say yes. Wow, man. Interesting though, man. Very interesting. Was it a case of if it was a person, you would expected to see him again?
Well, no, because of the time it took me to get from where I was, I might have been less than a quarter mile from that bridge, but not much. If I
Hmm.
wasn't a quarter mile out, I wasn't that much less. So it took me some time to get to the edge of that field where I could look to my left and even have a chance of seeing him, it. So, yeah, whether it was a person or whether it was a Sasquatch, either way, I fully expected them to be out of sight by then.
Yeah, man. Did you say, did it look quite muscular or was it like,
No, no, it didn't look that big. It had, as far as proportions, it could have been a big man. So I don't know. I mean, that's possible. It might have been a big man.
mhm.
I just don't know. All I can do, like I
Interesting.
said, is tell you what I witnessed.
Yeah. Interesting though, man. Interesting. Like you will know, so many people that encounter these things, it's normally a very brief seconds, and it is hard to get all that information in seconds. And it's when you see something like that. I mean, I haven't seen a Bigfoot yet. I'd love to one day. That's the goal. But I have seen a lot of weird stuff and things in the sky that I can't explain and you know, weird things in my house and possibly spirits and stuff like that. And but the only time I had an experience when I was really young where I woke up and I saw a ghost in my room. What I think was a ghost. It was a full-bodied apparition of a man.
Wow.
I got a good look at that, and that lasted pretty much the whole night for a long time. But other than that, these experiences are very quick, and it's very hard to, you know, to 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 know what's going on, and it's normally very shocking as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I don't know about other people, but for me, there's like a pressure when you find yourself in a situation like that, especially doing what I do. I found myself in the middle of that experience I never asked to be put in the middle of. And
Hmm.
I'm thinking, I'm just trying to gather as much information as I can. I'm thinking, okay, I'm in the crunch right now. I've only got so much time before he gets up and over the apex of that bridge, and I see less and less and less of him. I've only got so much time, so much of an opportunity to soak in every last detail about this subject that I can. If it
Hmm.
is a Sasquatch, then you really need to try to notice everything you can. Might be a man, might be a big man in
Hmm.
black, but if it is a Sasquatch, you're only going to get one opportunity to notice as many details as you possibly can. And it was
Hmm.
frustrating because of the lack of detail. It was so black. it was just really hard to get any detail other than just his shape.
Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah, it's difficult. I was in the New Forest not long ago in the UK, and it's a massive forested area. And me and my wife, the kids, are walking through the forest. We're on our own, completely on our own, and we stumbled upon just a little far ahead of us. There was three deers, and they were beautiful. You know, they had antlers, and they looked really like cool looking deers. But one of them was white. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. I don't think I've ever seen a white one before, you know, not in the wild, not in front of me. And I reached to get my phone because I've got to get a picture of this. And as I've sort of looked up again, they were gone. And I was like, to me, that sort of shows you how difficult it'd be. Everyone says, like, why is there not more pictures and stuff and, you know, more films? And I know we have got like Patterson Gimlin film and we have got some incredible videos of what I believe to be Bigfoots. But that's probably why, you know, it's so hard when you're in that moment to you don't even think about getting your phone, you know, when you're in that moment seeing these things.
Oh, no, not at all. And I heard a really good example of why we don't have more pictures of Sasquatch. And it kind of touches on that whole adage that, well, you had a phone in your pocket, the Sasquatch was right there. This one guy on this podcast I was listening to, he said, well, if we put you in a lion's cage at the zoo, how many pictures do you think you're going to get of the lion? And he's right. You just don't think about it at the time. Now, I knew when I was having that experience, I just didn't have the time to pull out a phone and try to take any pictures. And I knew that if I took my eyes off of it, there is every possibility that I'd lose track of it and I'd never see it again. So I just wanted to soak up every last moment of looking at this thing that I possibly could. And then looking all that distance, about a quarter of a mile over all those weeds in the green field to see its head. And then
Mhm.
it just eventually disappear as it was moving right to left. But yeah, that was something else.
Wow, man. I won't go too far into my experiences because I talk about them all the time on the show, and this is your episode. But I saw when I was about 27, about 10 years ago, something like that. I saw with my mother-in-law, we were sort of looking out the window in the flats that I was in at the time, and these three objects came out of the forest that was opposite the flats, and they were like only small, but they were like the size of a basketball. But there was three of them, and they were like moving around each other and constantly changing shape. And me and my mother-in-law were looking at these things and we were trying to work out what they were. Are they balloons? You know, we're going through all what they could be. It wasn't anything we've seen before, or I've never seen anything like it really since. But these things were sort of flying up into the sky, and we're watching them for a good 5 minutes, whatever it was, and all of a sudden they just went flash, 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 and the three of them just shot off, you know, right into space. You know, they were gone, and it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. And it was incredible, and I was just so happy that my mother-in-law was there. We both saw it together. The thing was that I had my iPhone in my pocket, so I could have recorded it. Didn't even think about it, man. You know, it wasn't even didn't even come into my mind at that time. We were just so amazed by what we were seeing, you know. So you don't get your phone
Yeah, and you could have recorded that, but if you would have recorded that, that really would have tarnished the experience that you and your mother-in-law would have
for sure.
that time. So I'm glad you didn't try to pull a phone out.
And when we're at family parties now, and we talk about this all the time, and you know, all the family members are looking at us like, "You sure it wasn't a balloon?" And we're like, "No, it definitely wasn't balloons." You know, this was something that we'd. It was wild. It was a cool thing to see. I've had quite a few weird experiences. That's definitely up there as well. So you're obviously you're talking to people about cryptid encounters all the time. What are your thoughts on what these creatures are?
Well, as more and more time goes by, it's funny. When you do what I do, it's only natural that you bounce back and forth from at one moment you're convinced that these things have to be flesh and blood creatures that are just out there trying to eke out a living. And then before you know it, you're convinced that they have to be supernatural beings from the ether. If you talk to so many eyewitnesses, credible eyewitnesses who report seeing them do things that only a supernatural being could do, what else are you going to believe that they are? But then again, you have a cycle where you talk with so many credible eyewitnesses who witness them doing things that point soundly towards them just being flesh and blood beings, creatures. So yeah, you just bounce back and forth. And then there are people who think that the government are making these things in the laboratory. That's an option now, but that definitely doesn't explain what all dogmen are, because encounters with these things predate our ability to make a test tube dogman by quite a few years. I mean, back in 1887 in Wexford County, Michigan, that's when the first documented sighting of a dogman was reported.
Wow, that's the year I was
So
born.
1887, huh?
Oh, sorry, not no, no, I'm not that old.
I was gonna say you wear it well.
1987, so 100 years later, I was born. Oh, wow.
That's too funny. But yeah, I mean, you might have a case where it's divvied up. You might have some supernatural dogmen. You've got some dogmen that were made in a laboratory by
Hmm.
our government over here. And then you might have other dogmen that are flesh and blood. So who's to say you don't have three types? It's really hard to say.
Yeah, that's where I kind of am at the moment. I feel like there's different types of what could be a similar thing. Because there's as you know, there's so many different types of cryptids now as well. You know, people have, we've obviously got the Mothman as well, which is a completely different thing. But there seems to be so many different types, and we put them in the Bigfoot or the Dogman box. But is it possible that there is just so many different these things are other beings? You know, we just don't know what they are.
Yeah, that's a good point. But then again, in a way, that kind of adds to the allure. The mystery, that kind of, at least for me, it does. It adds
Hmm.
to the allure.
Yeah, oh for sure, man. So what's your this is quite probably going to be a difficult question because you've had so many. But what are the sort of stories that really stand out in your mind that, just amazed you or that really stick out? I know you've got so many. I find it difficult when people ask me that. But are there any stories that stand out to you?
No, not stand out because if they were entertainment to me, then yeah, I could see them standing out.
Hmm.
You talk with an eyewitness who had a particularly traumatic encounter compared to most of the encounters, and that stays with you for a while and you feel for the people or the
Hmm.
person if it was just one eyewitness. But yeah, I mean, I'll walk around and I'll think about that person throughout the day and think, wow, poor Jim or poor whoever, and think about how that must have affected them. And, I'll think about how I'm looking forward to talking with them about that experience if I haven't spoken with them already. But yeah, as far as standing out, I mean, I've spoken with thousands upon thousands of dogman eyewitnesses. So, I mean, I've heard it all. I really
Hmm.
have.
Yeah.
So always cracks me up when I talk with an eyewitness and they tell me, Vic, you're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe this. And then they go on to tell me about something that I've heard people tell me that a dogman did who knows how many times. It's like telling a mechanic, you're not going to believe this. When I twisted the spark plugs, they actually came out of the engine's head. It was amazing. Well, yeah, it's no different than telling a mechanic that this is what I do.
Hmm.
This isn't a side hustle. This isn't a gig. No, I help dogman eyewitnesses for a living.
Hmm.
So it's funny. Speaking of that, the whole helping eyewitnesses for a living thing. There was a lady who reached out to me about her encounter, and she says she wasn't traumatized by it, and that's good. But it was a pretty traumatic experience that she had. This dog man took its claw and pierced its own tongue right in front of her when she was a little girl, and blood sprayed and all that. It did that for one reason only, because it knew that it would just mortify her by the self-mutilation. Well, I
Whoa.
spoke with her about her encounter, and about halfway through, the fact came out that I do make money. I have monetized the podcast episodes. And it sounded to me like that put her off. Originally, she wanted to be a guest on the show, but after she found that I had monetized the podcast episodes, I guess she didn't like the idea that I was making money off of her if she actually came on the show. But what she didn't realize is this is what I do. I
Hmm.
mean,
Hmm.
this is how I make a living.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I help eyewitnesses time after time after time. I'm not charging them for the help. I'm not charging them to help them with the trauma of their experiences and coming to terms with them. But there's another way that I do make money that makes it so it's totally free for them to get the assistance from me.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's just one of those quirky things that I do that's associated with what I do, every once in a while you'll have something strange like that pop up.
Yeah, man, that's wild. I mean, you help so many people, and it's very difficult. Like we're aware that it's very difficult for people to come out and share these experiences, but I'm so grateful that they do because it's very interesting. I know some of these encounters are very traumatic and not easy for the people that have experienced it. So that is difficult, and you're helping a lot of people out, man. I think you're a good place to go if people want to share experiences.
Well, thank you. I do the best I can to help them.
Yeah, yeah. You do an incredible job, man. Do you get any reports from the UK?
So yeah, I get some, not many, but yeah, I have gotten some from the UK.
Interesting, man. What are your thoughts with, because obviously the UK is a lot smaller than the US, there is a lot of forested areas. Most of the UK is forest, believe it or not. But what are your thoughts on cryptids in the UK, Dogman, Bigfoot? Because there are sightings.
Oh yeah, there definitely are. Well, dogmen are so optimized for survival. That's why people, when they have so much trouble coming to terms with their dogman encounters, like I tell them, it's not their fault. It's human nature that's to blame. But these things are so optimized. I mean, they really are. If you have a dogman encounter where you're not in a car, for example, and especially at a distance, if you're on foot and have a dogman encounter and make it out of that experience in one piece, it's not because of your skill, it's not because of your guile. It's because of one thing and one thing only. The dogman didn't want you. And that's a repeating pattern, time after time after time. These eyewitnesses have encounters with these dogmen where they're caught dead nuts to rights. But the dogman, sure, it does things to terrify them to within an inch of their lives, but they don't harm them. Now, let me qualify that. Over the years, I've spoken with probably 3 to 4,000 dogman eyewitnesses since 2007 when I spoke with my first one. But the grand total of dogmen who have intentionally harmed the eyewitnesses I've spoken with, credible eyewitnesses who've told me about being attacked by a dogman over the years, 7, 8, maybe 9. Now, at first, that's going to make you real when you think about 7, 8, maybe 9 dogman attacks. But looking at the big picture, 7, 8, maybe 9 out of how many? 3, maybe 4,000. That
Mhm.
right there tells you something that's really profound. And that is, if you took 3, 4,000 people who have had direct interactions with horses or pigs or goats or camels, whatever the animal, and you asked that group, okay, how many of you were ever intentionally harmed, attacked by said animal? There would be hundreds of people holding up their hands.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hundreds. Well,
Yeah.
if that number for dogmen out of that same sample size is only 7, 8, or 9, that right there tells you that these guys are not wired to rip us apart as soon as the opportunity presents itself. As far as blowback that I've gotten over the years for doing what I do, the most popular source of blowback that I've gotten and continue to get would be from people who have this in their heads that dogmen are just mindless, monstrous killing machines that'll eviscerate you as soon as the opportunity presents itself. But the numbers clearly show that's not the case. I mean, if that was the case, I wouldn't have spoken with thousands upon thousands of people who were caught dead to rights by a dogman or dogmen, as it
Mhm.
sometimes happens, but they're allowed to leave without a scratch, without a single hair in their heads being harmed. You've got people, tons of people over the years have said, well, you can't speak to the ones that were killed by the dogmen that they encountered, and that's true. But if these things were wired to rip us apart as soon as the opportunity presents itself, there's no way I would have spoken with hundreds of people who had
Mhm.
been in that situation but walked away without a scratch, not to mention thousands of people who found themselves in that situation but walked away without a scratch. So, yeah, it's a really flawed way of thinking to say, well, you can't speak with the people who were murdered by these things because dead men don't talk. When I've got such a huge group of people who, if these things really were wired to be so dangerous, they never would have made it out of the experience. It's no different than if you put your hand on a fire ant mound. If you
Hmm.
put your hand on a fire ant mound every time, 10 times out of 10, 100 times out of 100, they're going to eat you up. They're going to sting the dickens out of you. Why? Because that's how they're wired. And that's a repeatable result. If you
Hmm.
do a test, that's repeatable. That's a repeatable result. Every time you test them out that way, they're going to nail you because they are wired to be that dangerous and that aggressive. A
Hmm.
dog man, if dogmen were, same thing holds with them. If they were wired to be that dangerous, to people, then there's no way that I would have spoken with hundreds, let alone thousands of people who were allowed to leave an encounter without a scratch.
Hmm.
So that's my whole soapbox. I guess I'll get off my
Yeah,
soapbox
no,
there.
that's a great point though, man. You make a great point for sure. Because I mean, you're going to get some like people. You get some bad people. It's quite rare. I mean, I know that people say there's lots of bad people, but real like murderers and really horrible people. There's not many people like that. I don't think. I hope. So it's probably the same with Bigfoot and Dogman. You know, you might walk into one that is hasn't got good intentions, and that's not going to end well. And that might be where someone goes missing and never seen again. Maybe, you know, we can't say that definitely, but you make a great point. Yeah, a lot of these encounters, they're very quick, they're very brief. It's normally, if it's a bad experience, it's normally because of a feeling that's given the person, you know. It's not always, you know, an attack or, you know, yeah, it's very interesting, man.
Oh, yeah, definitely is. And let me qualify that too. Another thing that I have trouble with is there's so many people who send messages to me talking about how, for some reason, they think that when I get on my soapbox and I talk about this whole side, this aspect of the dogman phenomenon, somehow they get this idea that I'm saying that dogmen are safe. They're just automatically safe to be around, that there are no dangerous dogmen. I'll never say that. I'll never say that there are no dangerous dogmen. You name one example of a critter where there aren't dangerous examples that will kill you as soon as the opportunity poses or presents itself. You've got dangerous horses that will kill you if they have the opportunity. You've got dangerous people who will kill you if they get the opportunity. So why should dogmen be any different? Just like why should Sasquatch be any different?
Hmm.
So yeah, that's my take on that. Yes, they can be dangerous. Yes, there are dangerous dogmen out there, but that's the exception. That is
Hmm.
not the norm.
Hmm. Yeah, it's rare. Have you talked to people that have been physically attacked by Bigfoot and Dogman and actually physically touched and hurt?
Well, I can't remember speaking with anyone who told me about being attacked by a Sasquatch, but as far as dogmen go, yeah, definitely. I sure have. I've spoken with 7, 8, maybe 9 credible dogman eyewitnesses over the years who told me about being attacked by one. So, yes, I have.
Oh man, I'd like to tell you I can't say I've had experiences with Dogman, but uh, possibly I have, possibly. So I'd like to share that with you if I can. So I feel I've got to tell you my possible experiences, if that's
Sure.
cool.
Yeah.
So when I first moved to the house I'm in now, we didn't really know anything about the area. We're in Dorset in the UK, and we moved after COVID. We moved out of. I was living in Essex near London, and we just decided we wanted to be by the sea on the south coast and you know, forested areas around here and lovely walks and stuff like that. So that's why we moved down here, and we've got a big forest behind us, which I'm in every day, even today. You know, I'm always in there. I love it. I love going for walks. I've got a dog now, which I take all the time. My little dog man. But when we first moved, we didn't know anything about the area or the people or anything. And a few weird things happened that sort of didn't really add up. Uh, Very strange. So, for example, I've always been quite a night owl. I stay up all for the night and, you know, whether I'm doing a podcast or, you know, I stay up very late. And I normally go to bed at like 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. It's just normal for me. But when we first moved here, I'd sit in my front room and I'd be watching TV and I would hear like a growling outside. Now, again, I'm not saying this is a dog man, but this is just weird. And I would sort of get up, look outside the window, and I'd never be able to see anything. Never be able to see a little dog, a cat, anything. You know, there was nothing there. And I know that there's a Rottweiler that used to live across the road, a big dog. And I used to, in my mind, I used to think, oh, they're obviously letting that dog out, and it's growling, and it's in the street growling and outside my house. And found that kind of strange, because why wouldn't you just let it out in your backyard? Why are you letting it out in the front at night? And this happened quite a few times. I'd hear growling outside the house, but every time I looked, nothing there. Okay, that's the first sort of weird thing. And then, so as I say, we got this forest, and I've got two young daughters that I used to we walk. I've got three kids, but on this occasion it was me and my two daughters, and we were walking down the forest, and we're going on this route that we'd not really been on before, and we got to this point, and my eldest daughter, who would have been 10 at the time, just started freaking out. She said, "Daddy, I've seen something, I've seen," and she's pointing in the corner, in the distance. And I'm like, "What's the matter? Calm down. What have you seen?" And she said, "I saw a Bigfoot. It had yellow eyes." And at the time, I sort of dismissed it. I said, "No, you've not seen a Bigfoot. Calm down. You're scaring yourself. You know, it's getting late. Let's get home. You know, you're scaring yourself." And in my mind, I'm thinking she's listened to one of my podcasts, probably your show, and she's scaring herself. She's freaking herself out, or she's watched a documentary on telly or whatever. But I sort of dismissed it, and to this day, she stands by that she saw something that she just said looks like a Bigfoot in the distance. So that was another weird thing that happened. And then I was talking to someone. I started working locally, and I met new people in the area, and this girl started telling me about the devil dog, she called it, and apparently it was like a known thing in the area, and it's in books and all stuff like that. And she showed me the book and stuff, and she was telling me her experiences. She had some weird experiences over the forest, where she'd hear growling and get a negative vibe actually from whatever it was. And she said there were sightings, people seeing like how you would describe a dogman, bipedal werewolf type creature with red eyes. You know, that's what the description people were giving for this thing. And I was like, that's interesting, you know, because I'm sort of thinking about the growling that I heard outside my house, and then what my daughter saw. And again, I can't say that that's definitely what it was, but it's just weird. And then I bought myself, we got ourselves a little Staffordshire Bull Terrier puppy, who's a lovely dog. He's 2.5 years old now. When this happened, he was about a year and a half. And he's a lovely little dog, but he's fearless. Like, we've got bulls over the forest, and you know, he runs at them. He's not scared of any people. You know, he's a fearless little dog, crazy but lovely little dog. And on two occasions over in the forest, we've been walking along, and there's all different routes, but he knows the forest. We're always in the forest, as I say, even to this day, you know, every day. But there's been two occasions where he's freaked out at seemingly nothing. You know, he sort of stopped in his tracks, and my dog's backing up, but at nothing. There's no one else around. You know, it's like he's seeing something or sensing something, but I can't see anything. You know, I don't know what it is, and I've physically had to pick him up on a couple of occasions and walk him through wherever he's freaking out. It's happened with me, and it happened on another occasion with my wife when she was with him, and same thing, freaked out at seemingly nothing in this forest. Very strange. You know, no idea what that was. And then, you know, the last thing that kind of happened that was really strange is I took my two daughters on another occasion. We took their bikes down the forest, and we're going on this little route that they like to go on. And there's this little path that they ride down, and I sort of stand on the end and I watch them go down this path. And it's quite a long path. It's like a quarter of a mile, whatever it is. And but I can see them the whole way. So I'm there just watching them. They go to the end and they come back. Anyway, on this particular evening, they're going down this on their bikes, this little route, and they're about halfway down. And then I've noticed on the edge what I thought at first. I thought it was a fox, but it was grey, and it was on all fours, but it was quite big. And I was like, that's a big fox. You know, it's quite far in the distance. Then I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's a dog, and maybe it was a big dog. You know. But I'm sort of expecting to see an owner come out with this dog or whatever. But I'm just looking, and I can just see this dog. Anyway, my two daughters have seen this as well, freaked out, turned round on their bikes. My eldest has come back to me, and my Ruby, my middle daughter, has sort of stumbled because she was so scared. And I've run towards her, got to her. I said, you okay? You okay? I've looked up, and this dog, whatever it was, fox, big fox, whatever it was gone. You know, it seemed like a big dog to me, but there was no owner. You know, there was no one there. which I found strange. I would have thought they were coming towards us. And I said to my little girl, "You okay? You okay?" She went, "There was a wolf, Daddy. There was a wolf." And I was like, wow. At this point, I knew about the devil dog stuff. And you know, again, I can't say it definitely was that, but it just all those things together, it seems like there's something going on there. Very strange, man. But for me, that seems, if that is the case, that seems to be something supernatural to me.
Yeah, that just might be, but there's so many ifs and buts. It's just so hard to know for sure when it comes
100%.
to this.
100%. I could just be putting all these things together and, as I say, I can't say it's definitely that. It's just weird. It's just weird coincidences, maybe. I don't believe in coincidences anymore, but it just seems strange. I had to tell you that though, man.
You might be onto something. It just might have been one, but
Yeah.
like pre-med students are taught when they're learning how to become doctors, they're learning to become doctors. If you hear hooves clicking on the floor behind you, think horse, not zebra. And
Mhm.
in my opinion, there's a lot of wisdom to that saying, that adage, because obviously the simplest explanation in most cases, that's what it is.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
that's not to say that there aren't any zebras in the world, because there are.
Mhm. 100%, man. Yeah. So you
Definitely.
you you talk to a lot of people, and you've got a library of incredible encounters there. Do you go out and investigate as well, or is it more just talking to people and learning that way?
No, I don't do any research at all.
Hmm.
People send me pictures and all and other things, but like I tell them, I'm not a researcher. Some people will send me pictures and say, "You're not going to believe this, get a load of this," but it doesn't do anything for me. I
Hmm.
mean, I just focus on helping the eyewitnesses come to terms with their experiences, and as long as I can do that, then I'm good.
Hmm. I think that's the best way of learning anyway. Hearing people share their experiences and putting them all together and how they correlate and stuff like that. I think that's the best way of learning. Um, and that's how we are learning.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, man. So I've got to ask you while you're here, have you had any UFO experiences or any ghostly experiences or anything else paranormal happen to you?
Well, more than 45 years ago, I was night fishing one time. How much more than 45, I can't remember, but I was night fishing one time and I saw this light up in the sky and it was just moving. Seeing how far away the light was from us, and seeing how fast it moved across the sky, it went from being still to moving. I don't know for sure that it was an alien craft or anything, but it definitely was a UFO because I didn't know what it was.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, just like with that one experience, all I can do is just tell you what I experienced and let the cards lie where they fall. But as far as a ghost experience, years ago, I had gone to bed and I was actually asleep. Well, sometimes when you go to bed, not too long after you turn your lamp off. I guess it's because of the heat of the lamp dissipating and the metal cooling and it is contracting. Well, all of a sudden that metal part of the lamp will make like a loud tick. It kind of pops. Well, I was laying in bed and didn't have any metal lamps in the room. I'm laying there and all of a sudden I hear a tick like that. And just for some reason, it caught my attention. So I sat up in bed and I looked over towards the door of my bedroom. And I saw this dark figure that was standing there right next to the door of the bedroom. I can't remember how tall it was. I don't think it was tall enough to be a man. It was probably tall enough to be a woman, but whatever it was. But yeah, I'm just looking at this thing and then I shut my eyes really hard and rub my eyes and open my eyes again so I can see the wall back there behind where it was standing to see that it was just my eyes playing tricks on me, but it was still there.
Whoa.
So, yeah, that got my motor running. If that doesn't make the hair in your butt stand up, I don't know what
Yeah,
will.
man. Wow. Yeah. That's
And then all of a
wild, man.
sudden, just boom, just gone. Just no sound, just nothing, just gone. Watching, staring, not taking my eyes off, and then just I mean, no fading, just gone. So
Wow.
I don't know. There was enough
Yeah.
light in the room to be able to make it out, but not enough light to really see much in the way of detail. But
Mhm.
that's what happened.
Interesting, man. Would you say that was like your typical darker than the dark, the outline?
It wasn't quite that dark. Now, full disclosure, I was on Vicodin at the time because I had a dental procedure done, but I don't know that Vicodin is ever going to make you hallucinate. I
Yeah.
mean, I've had Vicodin other times, never had any hallucinations or anything like that. So, I mean, full disclosure, I did have some Vicodin, but what I experienced just doesn't seem
Interesting,
like a
man.
hallucination because
Yeah.
everything else was normal, no problems. I wasn't seeing other things appearing and disappearing. I wasn't dizzy or anything like that. It was just there. When I opened my eyes, I sat up and opened my eyes, and then it just disappeared.
Man, how was you feeling in that moment? Was it like a fear or
Yeah, I was lit.
I bet, I bet, I bet, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because I've woken up to like the shape of someone standing there, and that is terrifying. It's terrifying when you wake up and your kids are standing there. You know, anyone standing there when you wake up is scary. But that is a scary thing, man.
Oh, it
Interesting though.
it definitely is. I didn't know whether to scratch my watch or wind my butt. So it was intense.
What are your thoughts on the paranormal in general? Well, and this is a difficult question again because we don't really know what's going on. But what are your thoughts on what the paranormal is? What do you think people are experiencing when they're seeing these kinds of things?
You know what? There are a lot of people who would tell you that it's all too easy to prove that ghosts don't exist. There aren't any supernatural entities out there. There is no heaven. There is no hell. But there are too many things in the world that so many credible people have experienced to just dismiss that. I mean, I'm convinced that yes, there is a God, there is a devil, there is a hell, there is a heaven. And if that's the case, then why shouldn't there be things like these entities that pay people visits from time to time?
Hmm.
So I fully believe in their existence. I really do. Now, how it works, I'll be the first to tell you. I don't know, but I think they're definitely out there.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Is there any other experiences that you've had that you can share? Any other weird
Yeah.
paranormal encounters?
Well, maybe it was a weird experience. Maybe it was just my eyes playing tricks on me. There was one time I was heading down a road in the truck and I was way out in the country and all of a sudden I had looked down for some reason. I can't remember why, but I looked down around my waist and I looked up. And when I looked up, I could have sworn I saw what looked like. I'm not going to say I definitely saw this, but I saw what looked to me like what could have been a Sasquatch leg disappearing behind a tree on the left-hand side of the road, like it had crossed from right to left. How far ahead of me? Gosh, I'd say probably maybe 200 feet up ahead of me. But when I got to that tree that I thought I saw that leg disappear behind, there's nothing there. And there's no place for anything to hide. So, was that my eyes playing tricks on me? It definitely could have been. But it was full daylight. That doesn't preclude the chance that it was my eyes playing tricks on me. Maybe it was, but that's what I experienced. Take it for what it
Interesting.
is.
Interesting. Can you remember what color that was, man?
Oh, it was black, black, black.
Hmm.
If that's what
Wow.
I actually saw, it was blacker than black.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I guess you're talking about this stuff all the time and all the encounters that you've got. You're like I would say me as well. I'm always open and always looking for this stuff. And I think when you're looking for it, you're gonna see some weird stuff, man. With all the paranormal.
Well, see, that's the thing. I wasn't looking for when I head down the road.
Hmm.
When I drive around the country here, I'm not looking for them. I mean, if I see one, then I'll recognize that, okay, there's a squatch over there. But yeah, I'm not one of these people that's just peeking out the window, looking behind every tree for one. I mean, I'm so immersed in this whole field that when I'm heading down the road, I'm thinking about other stuff. I mean, yeah, in a lot of cases, I'll think about, I've got to do this today. I've got to get this done, thinking about work here. But as far as being Squatch crazy, Dogman crazy, that's just not the case because, I mean, this is my life. I'm
Hmm.
immersed in it.
Hmm. Yeah, man. Is there any areas, I know predominantly the encounters that you hear are in the US. Are there any areas in the US that really stand out to you that are, you would say, are like a real hotspot? I know we know some of the hotspots already, but are there any areas that you would say are, you hear a lot of encounters from there?
Well, for some time now, Tennessee, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, and parts of Ohio, the southern part there of Ohio, those seem to be the hottest spots now. And like I said, it's been the way for years now. At one point, it's true. Wisconsin, Michigan, they seem to be the hot spots. But that's really where this whole focus on Dogman started, though. So unless unless it's really brought to your attention that there is something called a dogman out there, then most people are just going to keep it under wraps and keep it to themselves. If they have encounters elsewhere where they don't know that, yeah, plenty of people see these things too, they're going to be even more likely to keep their experience to themselves. So I think that's why it seemed like Wisconsin and Michigan were kind of like the birthplace for this whole phenomenon. When
Hmm.
in fact, I mean, they've been seen all over. I've talked with people, I think, from every continent on the planet except for Antarctica about their dogman encounters.
There's got to be Dogman there. There's got to be.
I don't know about that.
No.
There might be with the way these guys are so optimized to survive. I mean, they're so fast, they're so strong, they're so intelligent, they're so big. So, I mean, they've got every advantage. They can run down anything, they can kill anything. I mean, they don't have any trouble feeding themselves. So, if anything could scratch out a living there, dogmen would be the ones. They can kill any seal they come across, they can kill any penguin to subsist on.
Hmm.
So they could
Yeah,
do
man.
it. Not to say they are, but they could do it.
Hmm. So that 1887 encounter, where was that? Sorry to put you on the.
Oh, no, you're fine. That was Wexford County, Michigan.
Oh,
Yeah, the
wow.
story behind that was there was a logging camp, and one of the loggers had brought his daughter to the logging camp that day, and somehow she was abducted by a dog man, supposedly. And she got away. She wasn't killed by it. She got away and she told the people, the adults, about what she had experienced and everything. But yeah, that was in 1887 in Wexford County, Michigan.
Interesting, man. It's so interesting. And obviously that's the first 1887, but then you look at like Egyptian history and you've got Anubis and things like that, and dogman type creatures have been in mythology for years and centuries and all around the world as well. So it's so interesting, man. It's so interesting. What do
Oh,
you
yeah.
what do you think a dogman is? I know that's difficult, but what is your thoughts on what they are?
Well, if I had to bet on it, I think they are supernatural beings. But then again, that's if there aren't multiple kinds of dogmen. Ethereal beings that are considered to be dogmen, flesh and blood creatures that people call dogmen, maybe aliens that look that way. Maybe there are test tube dogmen that the government has created in a laboratory. It's really hard to say for sure. I
Hmm.
mean, there might be multiple kinds of things that we call dogmen. So it's really hard to say. I
Hmm.
can't answer that definitively. I've got no idea what they
Yeah,
are.
it's interesting though, man. Hopefully we get the answers one day. But Vic, I have absolutely loved talking to you tonight, brother. It's been quite surreal. I'm not going to lie. It's been quite surreal. You've got one of the coolest podcast voice there is out there, I would say. Um, and thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving us, hours of amazing, amazing encounters and content. And yeah, you're a legend, man. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for the good words. I'm just a regular guy, though.
A cool guy. A cool guy. Can you tell the listeners where they can find you?
Yeah, as far as my new podcast goes, Dogman Tales, if you just use your favorite podcast app, you can find it on any podcast app out there. So wherever you listen to podcasts, if you do a search for Dogman, Dogman, T as in Tom, ALES, Dogman Tales. You'll be able to listen to the new podcast that way. Right now, I've been releasing 4 new episodes every week. For the next 2 weeks, I'm going to continue doing that. And then after that, I'll release new episodes once every Friday night, 1 new episode every Friday night. As far as Dogman Encounters Radio goes, where I talk with real Dogman eyewitnesses, you can also use your favorite podcast app to listen to Dogman Encounters. That's definitely the best way to listen to all of my shows is via your favorite podcast app. And then, of course, you've got Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio. I release new episodes of that every week, if not 2 new episodes now, any more every week. To listen to that, same thing, Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio. Recommend using your favorite podcast app to listen to that. And then lastly, my Bigfoot sighting. You can listen to my Bigfoot sighting on your favorite podcast app. So it makes it really easy that way.
Mhm. Awesome stuff, man. Awesome stuff, brother. Well, I'm going to be listening to the new one tonight, Dogman Tales. I'm going to check that out right now as soon as we end this. And the links for your shows will be in the show description, so people can go there right now and check them out. Vic, thank you so much, man. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. A surreal moment for me, a special moment, because you're a legend. I've been listening to you for a long time. Thank you so much, sir. Keep up the great work. I know you will. But thank you.
Oh, thanks for the good words. This has been a great time, so thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, brother. Guys, thank you so much for listening. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, share it where you can. That is a great way to support the show. And we'll be back very soon for more freaky conversations. In the meantime, stay safe and keep it freaky. Bye for now. Thank you very much, sir.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.